Good evening. This is Elsie Kerns, your Eden energy medicine practitioner and chaos to clarity coach. Tonight, I have a very interesting guest and colleague, Monica Armstrong. She's an artist, an author, and a spiritual mentor. So, before I get into talking to Monica about this very uh, new workshop on Mary Magdalene, I just wanted to say that she did a chapter in Surviving to Thriving in March that was a great success. And her chapter in particular, I fell in love with, of course. So, Monica, I want to welcome you to the show. And there's so much I want to ask you about this. But I want first if you would tell us a little bit, about all the training you did for your artwork and spiritual direction.
Okay, well, thank you, Elsie. I'm delighted to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I really started out in art, as a youngster, and although my high school experience of art wasn't too great, I was determined anyway that was something I felt very passionate about. I initially went to nursing school. And I had to leave there because it made me sick. I would get every single day I went on the floor, I would get sick. And so I left after about 9 months, began waitressing to save up money to go to art school. And then I ended up going to Moore College of Art in Philadelphia, which at the time was a women's college. So the only way I could maintain myself and live at home and continue to work and go to school was I had to agree to take an education degree, even though I really just wanted to paint. So
Right.
anyway, I have a degree in art education, and I ended up using that degree not in, well, very rarely in school settings, but I have actually taught in halfway houses, mental hospitals, prisons, drop-in centers, adult centers, every odd and unusual opportunity to teach art. That's where you would find me, because I wasn't too happy to be in a classroom. But anyway, I studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts for a while, and then actually studied as an apprentice up in Bucks County with a man by the name of Jacques Faber, he was retired from the California School of Arts and Crafts, and he had trained at the Beaux-Arts in Paris. And he had a completely different take on painting. And that's where I really learned not only how to paint, but I learned how to teach, which turned out to be a really wonderful thing in my life. And his method of teaching was to not to find out and help you see what was working in your drawing or your painting and how to expand that, as opposed to picking out all the things that weren't working and make you want to just jump off the bridge.
Yeah.
So that became my philosophy of teaching, not only in art, but also in, many other ways of life, is to find out what's working and then just make that grow, make that grow. So that's where I come from in all my endeavors now. And so I was a studio artist for, I hate to say it, 40 years. And I've painted both on this coast and on the West Coast. I was in San Francisco for 5 years, where I learned to do murals. And I did quite a few large public murals on both coasts. And but my studio work is really my passion. And I guess I was probably about 20 years into it when I came to a turning point one day when I had finished a series of paintings, and I had prepared some blank canvases. It was like Friday, and so I took the weekend off, came back that Monday into my studio, and I had all these nice blank canvases ready to go. And I suddenly realized it's not really about getting to be a better artist anymore. It's really about what's the point. what is the point of all this? Because the life of an artist is not an easy one. There's a lot of sacrifice involved. And I felt that I needed to do something other than simply improve my skills or create a pretty picture. That just wasn't enough to justify the kind of sacrifice involved in this career. So I decided that I really wanted to begin to have my work come from a more of a spiritual perspective.
Yes.
And at that time, the way that I began was I started reading Carl Jung, actually, and I ended up reading his collected works. It took a couple of years, but his take on the way that the human spirit and the desire for the eternal, for the universal spirit, and that making that connection, I just was very inspiring to me. And then that also led me into doing a lot of dream work. And even today, I do a lot of dream work. I actually have a group called
Yes.
Dreamtime that meets once a month, because there's something that's very coherent between the way of using symbols in creating artwork and the kind of symbols that come up in all of our dreams. We have two kinds of symbols. We have universal symbols and we have our personal secret code. And
Yes.
I just find that fascinating work to help people unpack those two. And so anyway, I began to do both dream work and to explore things on a spiritual level, and developed a couple of bodies of work, which I was pretty happy with. And and then people started saying to me, "What does that mean?" When they would see my paintings, they'd say, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" And I had a really hard time explaining it. So for a couple of years, I looked for someone who would write for me, write down meanings like I would tell them and they would write, because frankly, I went to art school. I didn't do a whole lot of writing in art school, like none. Okay. So anyway, I couldn't find anybody, of course, who could write about my work. So I decided I should learn how to do that myself, and I ended up finding this remarkable program in Philadelphia at the Chestnut Hill College, and it was a graduate program called Holistic Spirituality. And I ended up staying there for quite a few years, and it was a fantastic program. Just totally opened my eyes to the incredible history of world religions and Christian religion, in a way that I had absolutely no clue before. I mean, I thought I knew. I, you know, was involved with religion since I was a child, but no. So
Yeah.
anyway, so
But
that evolved into a whole nother form of painting. And then there became a kind of a fork in the road where I could either continue with an academic conclusion or I could go into spiritual direction or spiritual mentoring. And I decided to go in that direction.
yes, I know that I think when you were at Chestnut Hill College, you spoke about having the opportunity to study under Karen King and her connection to the original scriptures. Would you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's where, Mary Magdalene even spurred your interest more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was really fortunate. It happened that Karen King, who was one of the scholars on it was called the Jesus Project. And it was composed of an international collection of scholars who were retranslating the Dead Sea Scrolls and the scrolls that have been discovered in the last 50 years. She was conversant in the 5 basic languages, including
Wow.
Aramaic and Latin and Egyptian and Coptic, Greek and regular Greek. And she happened to be leaving Berkeley Theological College, University, and moving to Harvard to the Divinity School. And along the way, she was stopping across the country giving these intensive courses. And I just happened to be in that program when she was passing through Philadelphia and was able to do an incredible intensive with her on the early Christian communities. And she started with the translations of some of these scrolls that were discovered in the last probably 50 years. There's several of them that were discovered, and one of them was the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. She's actually recently, in the last few years, published a new book based on those translations. And so let me tell you, they tell a very different story about Mary Magdalene, coming from a woman, a feminist, and a scholar, than the sort of whisper down the lane stuff that came before. And it was a very interesting revelation, really, as to how this woman, who was the beloved companion of Jesus, came to be, and also known as, in the early scriptures, as the apostle to the apostles. In other words, number one, the apostle to the apostles, came to be known as a prostitute and a whore. Okay, well, enough of that. So,
well, now wait, but your interest in Mary Magdalene goes all the way back to grade school, if I remember you talking about that.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I went to Catholic school. I came from a very devout Irish Catholic family, and
Sure.
you know, right from the get-go, I would hear the stories of Jesus and the apostles and so on and so forth. And really pretty early on, I noticed there was this one girl who kept showing up in the stories. Her name was Mary Magdalene. So around about third grade, it was time to make my confirmation. And the tradition with your confirmation is that you choose a name of someone who you want to model yourself after. Now, even then, they were saying not very nice things about Mary Magdalene. But I thought, well, she's hanging out with Jesus. How bad could she be? Sounds like, okay, maybe she had a good time, but she still was hanging out with Jesus. So I chose Mary Magdalene for my confirmation name at the age of 10.
Wow.
And the reality was that actually when we were in line to get our little, you know,
right
on our head and all that stuff, and the bishop's going down the line to each one of us, we had to say the name that we chose. And I said, Mary Magdalene, and he smacked me.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And he goes, no. And I said, he says again, you know, what's the name? And I said, Mary Magdalene. This went on 3 times. It was very biblical. Finally, he gave up and moved on. So I had the name Mary Magdalene. But anyway, it was, she was a figure that I just thought, she was someone who was there at all of the really important times in Jesus' ministry. And that's where I wanted to be. If I'm going to be a Christian, I want to stand right next to him. And that's so ever since then, every time I could find any kind of a book or you know, any information about Mary Magdalene, I was very interested. And I just kind of never really believed some of those old stories. It just didn't make any sense to me. It just didn't make sense. So anyway, came to a point in time when I had this course with Karen King, and her being a scholar of Mary Magdalene, I was delighted to have that opportunity. And then later on, probably 10 years later, there was a whole nother scripture that was revealed, and it is actually called the Gospel of the Beloved Companion, and it's one that actually comes out of France, out of the and there's a whole tradition about how Mary Magdalene left, you know, Jerusalem and then went to France, to southern France, and then spent the rest of her life there. And that whole piece of history was seriously repressed, particularly around the 11th century. There was a huge amount of interest in the France and Rome and, you know, some of the European countries right around there that were really getting very engaged with the story of Mary Magdalene, and the Pope was having none of it and actually declared war on that part of the country. And there's a whole nother story there. But the reality is that the scriptures were saved, and they have only been recently been retranslated and revealed again because the people who saved them believe that it was safe now to spread the word about her.
So your workshop this coming Sunday at your studio here in Woodbury from 10:30 to 4:30 is going to be focused on the hidden vision of Mary Magdalene, correct?
Exactly, right? Exactly. In these Gospels, what happens is that Jesus gives Mary Magdalene a vision, and the vision itself is an 8-step pathway to what he calls the kingdom of the Spirit, and it's actually a tree of life. And he says the tree is within each of us, and our roots are our physical body and our human experience. And our growth is this trunk, and it goes up to include 8 great boughs. And each bough bears 2 fruits that we need to consume and be nourished by. But in order to be able to pluck those fruits, we have 2 things that we must unburden ourselves of, be relieved of the weights, so that we can ascend to these fruits. So I'm going to be teaching a little bit about her overall history and an overview of this tree of life and this 8-fold pathway. But then we're going to really zero in on the first branch and those fruits. And those fruits are love and compassion, and the things that you must relieve yourself of, the weights that hold you back from being able to really access true love and compassion, are judgment and wrath. And wrath is described as what we would call habitual anger, or anger where you just get triggered. And it's usually something from the past that you just get triggered, and all of a sudden you're, you know, all kinds of bad things are going on in your head, and it's not even happening. Nothing's even really happening. You just got triggered, but you're holding on to this wrath. So one of the things that's really exciting about this 8-fold pathway is that each one of these things that you can claim, I mean, imagine if the very first bough is love and compassion. Can you imagine how fantastic the other 7 are?
Yes.
I mean, that's like number 1. Most of us would think that was the ultimate, but no, Jesus actually says it is the foundation of all good things. And and so the invitation is to imagine, even for one day, to not be judging yourself or judging somebody else, and to not be triggered with anger. Can you imagine, like, what a great day that would be? And can you imagine having a lot of great days where you have full access to your true energy, and you're not wasting it in judging yourself and others, and, you know, just getting aggravated because you didn't get what you wanted that particular moment, or you got something you didn't want, like a traffic jam or, you know, whatever.
Well, I think today, based on the fact that we have the internet and we have information at our fingertips from around the world, and there is a lot of anger and wrath in the world today, confusion, really, it's a difficult time. Kathy Cuter is joining us from Philadelphia, and she said, so interesting about judgments and exclusion, even in Jesus's time, him talking about that.
Yeah, the very first level. And so what we're going to do is, after we go through this sort of general information, is I've created an art project which I'll guide people through to create, to actually identify certain things that they want to be relieved of in the areas of judgment and in the area of wrath, and identify them. We'll do a piece of art around that, and I'll be presenting various tips and techniques to practice so that you can continue with that, because obviously that's not a one-day task. so that when you leave the workshop, you'll not only have an overview, but you'll have a specific process that you've been through, and some ways to move forward on your own goals around this. And that's just the first bow.
Well, I just want to say, for all of those people out there that have concerns about their art ability, I have been at workshops with Monica, and we did some magic wands, and she led us through every step, and I have no art ability. So this will be great because you'll have her guidance and suggestions. All the materials will be there. But as she just said, you're going to have something special to take home with you to root this first branch in, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to say hello again. Sonia's here, and Sherry Whiting. Heidi said hello to both of us. So we have a lot of people, really interested in this topic.
Great. Great.
Because I just have to say again, when I went to all those years of Catholic school, I mean, Mary Magdalene was considered a bad girl.
Dangerous woman.
Yes, dangerous woman. So dangerous beauty.
Yeah.
So to see all of this that is, come to light, that is painted how she was a beloved companion of Jesus is so exciting for the feminine.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing with this Tree of Life path is that there is absolutely nothing in there about suppressing yourself, punishing yourself, suffering, shutting up. It's all about releasing who you really are and achieving your fullest potential, because that's what God wants from all of us. No more, no less than the flower or the tree or the bird, to just be exactly who we are in the fullness of our gifts. That's our gift to the world, to be who we really are and to be free with that.
And Jesus, of course, was working from that fourth dimension and trying to raise us up, enlighten us to that area of working from love and compassion, that there's plenty for everybody. And we're still trying to get it today, 2,000 years later.
That's right. Well, it's interesting in this gospel, after she receives the vision, he tells her that she should go and teach this, and to teach it to the apostles first. So she goes and she tells them the vision, and they go, "Oh, that's like too complicated. That can't be true. You must be making this up." And she says, "What? You think I could make this up? What are you, nuts?" He says, this comes from our friend Jesus. And they're like, "Oh no, it's just like too complicated. I don't understand." Nah. So that's one of the reasons why it never got out, was that they actually couldn't understand what she was talking about.
Well, we're in the age of the divine feminine, ladies. So I think you would find it very helpful to join Monica this Sunday. I'm going to put the link down below where you can register, get all the details. And the best part of this is that you can bring a friend for free.
That's right. Because we all need more. We need more people to be on the same path, so we can help each other and recognize each other's gains instead of picking on each other for, what we don't have.
Right. Yeah. So, Monica, tell me the address again of your studio.
Sure. My studio is called Spirit Matters Studio, and it is a building that is separate from my home, which is at 54 Watkins Avenue in Woodbury, New Jersey, 08096.
And I'll also have Monica's website up so that you can also go to her website and see some of the artwork that she's done. She has beautiful prayer bowls and all sorts of artistic creativity, and you've actually combined your spiritual teachings with your creativity. I think that is what makes them so accessible to all of us.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. It's taken me a while to figure out how to, not so much how to combine them in my own life, but how to support other people to be able to connect their creativity with their spirituality. Because I have found over and over again in my private practice that if a person is able to access their creativity, it enhances and opens up their spirituality, and vice versa. And I really do believe and have experienced that everybody is creative, not necessarily in the same way, but it's the same spirit. And it's how it is the first gift. Like, think back when you were a child and you were being taught, who is God and all that stuff. And they go, well, God is the creator and God made us in his likeness. So therefore, the first gift you received was creativity. It's your birthright. And that's what I want to unlock for you.
Great. Oh, I love that. Yes. It's a great reminder. It really is our birthright, and we forget that. We get so lost in judgment or judging what we've done. Woo.
Yeah. Yep. And is there ever a time when we needed a creative, positive outlook and tools to bring this mess back into some kind of balance? The world needs us.
Yes, the world.
Big time. It needs strong, creative women who are willing to step up, speak up, and get on with the business of making this world a better place. And that's what this is all about. Yep. Beautiful inside, flowing out like grace, like a river.
Great. Well, that's the kind of inspiring thinking that Monica brings to her workshops, to her retreats. So come join her this Sunday from 10:30 to 4:30 at Spirit Matters Studio, right in Woodbury. And don't forget, you can bring a friend for free. So the two of you will have something to share when you leave about the day, and you can carry that even further, or perhaps decide to work with her personally as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Kathy Cutier, I just want to remind you that you can find out also about her meetups on Dreamtime, which Kathy was very interested in your dream workshop.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, they meet once a month on the last Wednesday of the month. And my other meetup is called Women of Spirit. And this day-long retreat is actually an outgrowth of the Women of Spirit. So I do once a month, usually the first Sunday of the month, I do a 3-hour meetup where we explore the scriptures that describe Sophia wisdom, another element of the feminine divine who's right there in the scriptures, hidden in plain sight, nobody ever talks about. Hello. Sophia is calling to us. It's amazing, amazing scriptures. And so we explore those scriptures, and also many of the women spiritual leaders throughout the centuries and throughout the globe who've left an amazing legacy of brilliant, heartening, strengthening, writings. So I've studied them all, and I've found a way to bring them to you without having to go to graduate school, and to bring them into a sense of a community of women and a creative community to just free our spirits, lift our spirits, and help us grow.
And as you said, bring some balance into the world. And women certainly have the capacity, the healing ability to do that. I also want to say that behind me, this great screen, I can even turn it upside down and it's kind of fuchsia color. But Monica came one day and we laid it out on the lawn, and she just showed me how creative we could be in a very short time. So please come join the group on Sunday, and you can click the link that I put down there if you want any further information, or contact Monica directly. Monica, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, my pleasure, Elsie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And come one, come all. We'll have a great time. I promise you it'll be an experience you will never forget. In a good way.
In a good way, yes.
In a good way.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This is Elsie Kerns, and if you need a little help physically, emotionally, a little energy work, feel free to contact me at wellnesswithelsie.com. And I also do some chaos to clarity coaching. So I'd love to help you as well. In the meantime, don't forget this Sunday, 10:30 to 4:30 at Spirit Matters Studio.
Thanks, Elsie. Bye, everybody.
Welcome. Bye.